Every February 2nd, something kind of weird happens. Thousands of people gather together in the freezing pre-dawn dark of a tiny town in Pennsylvania, and they're all there to ask a single groundhog one very, very big question. What does the future hold? This is the story of Punxsutawney Phil, who is, without a doubt, the world's most famous and definitely the furriest weather forecaster.
But seriously, let's just stop and think about that for a second. We live in an age of Doppler radar, of supercomputers running complex climate models. So why do we still pin all our hopes on a groundhog? What are we really looking for when we all stare at that little burrow just waiting for a sign?
Well, to understand this tradition, you have to understand that to his followers, Phil is not just some animal. This is the official line from the Punxsutawney Groundhogs Club's inner circle. For them, he's a true mythical figure, this direct link to the turning of the seasons. He's a seer. So first, let's just talk about the sheer spectacle of it all. Picture this. It is hours before sunrise, and tens of thousands of people are packed onto this snowy hill called Gobbler's Knob. The air is just electric, there's music, there's this incredible sense of anticipation, all for one single moment, the moment Phil reveals the future.
And the prophecy itself, it's actually super simple. If Phil comes out and sees his shadow, he gets spooked and runs back into his burrow. That means 6 more weeks of winter. But if it's a cloudy day and there's no shadow, well, that's the signal for an early spring. It's a pretty straightforward idea for a tradition with surprisingly deep roots. So you gotta wonder, where did this whole idea of an immortal weather-predicting groundhog even come from? I mean, it didn't just pop out of the ground one day. The real story is this fascinating blend of ancient European folklore and some classic American showmanship. It actually evolved over centuries. It all started way back in the 1700s with German settlers. They brought over a Christian festival called Candlemas, and their original forecaster was actually a hedgehog. But when they got to Pennsylvania, they had to adapt, and the local groundhog was the next best thing. The first official ceremony at Gobbler's Knob didn't happen until 1887, and our little guy wasn't even named Phil until 1961.
Okay, and this is where the legend gets really fun. How has Phil been around since the 1880s? Well, the story goes that every single summer, he takes a sip of a magical elixir of life, and that one sip gives him 7 more years. It's this playful piece of lore that lets a single groundhog become this timeless, unchanging icon.
Now, behind every immortal groundhog, there's a group of very dedicated humans. They're called the inner circle. Think of them as the official stewards of the legend. They're responsible for literally everything, from taking care of Phil to planning that entire massive Groundhog Day ceremony. And don't go thinking this is some secret, mysterious cabal. They're 15 unpaid volunteers from the town, and they serve for life. I mean, these are people with day jobs, a teacher, a doctor, an attorney, a contractor. They are simply the guardians of this tradition, and they pour an incredible amount of their own time into keeping the magic alive. And that sense of duty, of legacy, it runs deep. For a lot of them, it's a family thing, passed down from one generation to the next. The current president, Thomas Dunkel, he literally holds the exact same cane on stage that his father held for decades. He's not just upholding a tradition, he's carrying on his family's story. And of course, a ritual this important has its own special rules. Only the president of the inner circle can actually understand Phil's prediction. The legend says Phil wakes up and speaks in Groundhogese, this secret language of chirps and winks. And the president, with the help of that special cane, translates it for the rest of the world.
All right, so we've got the magic, the myth, the whole spectacle. But now, our story is about to take a hard turn into reality. What happens when this beloved piece of folklore slams right into cold, hard data? And the difference here is, wow, it's pretty huge. The inner circle, they playfully claim that Phil is 100% accurate. They joke that if there's ever a mistake, it's just in the translation. But when you actually crunch the numbers from historical weather data, well, those numbers tell a very different story. They put his accuracy somewhere between 35 and 41%.
So just look at that. On one hand, you have this legend of perfect, 100% accuracy. And on the other, you have a reality that's statistically no better than just flipping a coin. It really makes you ask the question, if he's not actually forecasting the weather, then what is the real point of all of this?
And that question right there gets to the absolute heart of all this. Because the survival of this tradition has absolutely nothing to do with meteorology. Its real power comes from something much, much deeper, something that data could never measure.
Think about it. The true purpose was never about a weather forecast. It's a ritual about people. It's about a community deciding to gather together in the middle of winter, to stand shoulder to shoulder in the dark, and to look for a shared sign, any sign that the light and the warmth are coming back. It's a celebration of getting through it all together. So maybe we've been asking the wrong question this whole time. What if the future that Phil reveals isn't about the weather at all? Maybe his real prediction is quieter, but so much more profound. It's the promise that, despite the cold, despite the darkness, we endure. That we will be here to gather again next year, and the year after that, to wait for the sun, together.